Dave, and this is part 2 of methods. So we're going to continue our discussion on methods. And so I have this is the same app as from part 1. We've still got the introduce yourself method here. So I want to go to the design. I want to go to the design view. I'm going to add a couple of text boxes. Let's add a couple of text boxes. So I'm just going to click on Toolbox. If you don't see Toolbox here, you can always go to View and Toolbox. All right. So Toolbox, and I'm looking for a text box. The text box. I'm going to left click on text box and drag it onto the form. And we need another one. So this time I'm going to double click. I'm just going to double click on text box, and it added a form. And so there we go. We could even increase the width of the form here. Might as well. So let's put this, let's kind of center it a little bit, make it look nice. Alright, that's good. That looks nice. That looks pretty. Alright, so we have 2 text boxes. Right, and I'm going to click on press F4, and that brings up the property grid. So F4 again brings up the property grid, or you can right click and click on properties. Or if you have properties on auto hide, you just click here. So you want to go to the properties grid. So whatever is selected, again, whatever you have selected, that's the properties that are going to show up in the properties grid. So I have this text box selected, so these are its properties, right? And the name of this text box is text box 1, right? We can change the name if we want. Text box 1 is the default. So, and by the way, if you want to change the name, there's the name property, and you can change the name here. And actually, let's do this. Go ahead and change the name here. TXT BX. Well, it's just box, right? Value 1. So let's do that. So TXT box value 1. Let's name it TXT box value 1. You could name yours something different if you like. You want to find a convention and stick with it. So you want to be able to see this in the code. If I see the TXT box, then I know that's a text box, right? So hit enter. All right. So the first one's named TXT box value 1, and F4. Bring up the property grid, and we're going to name this one TXT box value 2, right? And hit enter. So I've changed the name of the text box. And I could have just used the default, but might as well go ahead and change name. So this one is TXT box value 1, and this one is TXT box value 2. Make sure you know the names. So we're going to access these text boxes through the code. We're going to access them programmatically, right? Programmatically. Which means we're accessing them through the code. This is the design. This is the GUI, the user interface, graphical user interface. But we want to be able to access these through the code, and the way we do that is with its properties, is with its name, right? Is with its name, which is one of its properties. So okay, so we have 2 text boxes. We have a label. We'll use that later. And we have 1 button, right? And this button, we've already set up the click event. So you could double click on this button if you want. It will take you to its click event. Or we can press F7. We can right click, view code, or you can press F7. Now we're just going to press F7 this time. Alright, so now we're at the code behind. We're at the code behind, right? This is the code behind. So we want to create another method. And so again, I'm going to click to the right of the closing bracket, right, in this method, and hit enter. We just hit enter a couple of times. And I'm going to use the public. And you see public selected, so I can just hit enter. Could use private here. Probably typically I would use private in this case, but we're just going to go with public. Again, this is not going to make sense until we get into object-oriented programming, so don't worry about the access modifier. Just know that it's got to be there. Well, technically it doesn't need to be there, but just know you should put it there. And if you don't know which one to use, just use public for now. So just kind of ride with it. Don't worry about why it's there and all that, but we'll get into that when we get into OOP, object-oriented programming. So we're not going to return a value with this method. So we're just going to put void, use the keyword void. It's a keyword. It's blue, so it's a keyword that indicates keyword or built-in, something built into C#. So in this case, it's a keyword, which means that this method does not return a value. So, and I want to name this method swap, right? Because the idea is we're going to swap this value. We're going to swap values. Whatever's in here is going to go over here, and whatever's in here is going to go over here, right? So we're going to do a little switcheroo here, right? So actually, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to click on this button and press F4 this time. Go to its properties, and I'm going to change this to swap. Let's change that to swap. So I'm going to change the text property of the button. I have the button selected, and I press F4, or however you want to go to the properties grid. And so these are the properties for that button. We could change the name of the button if we wanted to. So one of its properties is text, which is the text that's displayed on the button. So I'm going to change that to swap. Just change it to swap. Right? I just hit enter, just change it here, and then hit enter. So just click off here. So when I click this button, it's going to do a little switcheroo, right? It's going to swap these. Whatever's in here is going to go over here. Whatever's in here is going to go over here, right? So let's go back to the code behind, F7, or right-click, view code, either way, F7. So I'm going to name my method swap. I'm going to name my method swap. And I'm going to parameterize my method, right? I'm going to give it some parameters. This time we're going to do two parameters. Value 1, and we separate parameters with a comma. We separate them with a comma. So if you have more than one parameter, you have to separate them. You have to separate them with a comma. Use a comma to separate the parameters, right? So I'm going to use that comma, and we'll put a little space there. And for each parameter, you have to define what data type it's going to hold. These are boxes, right? The computer's memory. These are boxes, and you have to define what type of data goes into those boxes. And I'm getting the red squiggly here. It's not because I'm missing a semicolon. It's because I'm missing the curly brackets. Right? This is a method. This is a method, so we need curly brackets, not a semicolon. We do not need a semicolon here. Right. Okay, so I have a new method. I've called it swap. That's my identifier. So I'm going to identify or refer or call this method. It's not returning a value. We'll look at a method that does return a value later. But this one's not going to return a value. It's just going to do something. We're going to pass it some values, and it's going to do something, right? So let's go ahead and create a variable. But first, let's think about what do we need to swap? How are we going to swap? What do we need to do? And one way to do this, perhaps the most efficient way to do this that I can think of, is to create a box temporarily, where we can temporarily put a value. So we're getting the value 1. We're getting two different values. So if we can take this value, value 1, whatever gets put in that box, if we can put that in another box temporarily, temporarily put that in a box, and then put whatever's in this box into this box, right? And then take whatever's in that box, that temporary box, and put it into this box, right? So if that made no sense at all, let's look at the examples. Hopefully that'll be clear. So okay, so it's going to be a string type. That's what type of data we're taking. It's our parameters or strings. So let's just name this temp, right? It's going to be our temp box, and we'll just initialize it with a value of null. Null just means no. It's a value that means no value, right? It represents no value. So and actually that's the default, so you really don't have to put that there, but I'll just go ahead and do that. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. We don't want to do that. We want to put value 1 there. Okay, I'm tripping. Okay, so we want to initially put value 1 there. So that's the idea. We take this, whatever's in this box, we take this parameter box, input parameter box, we'll call it, right? Whatever's in there, we'll take it out and put it in this box, this temporary box, right? So we take out whatever's in here, put it in this. in this box, right? So, okay, so now we want to put value 2, or value 1 rather. We want to put whatever's in value 2, we want to put in value in this box. Whatever's in this box, this parameter box, right? Whatever's in this parameter box, whatever gets passed to that, we want to put into this box. Right? So we put what was passed to this, what was dropped in this box, we put in this box temporarily, right? So now we want to put whatever's in this box into this box. Okay, so now we want to put what's in the temp box, the temporary box. We want to put that into value 2, right? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and now we're going to assign these new values to the text property. This is kind of a roundabout sort of way of doing it, and it will be named txt. So I just type in tx, and there we go. But that's okay for now. We'll see a more proficient way later on. So the text property, this is value 1. So we're going to assign it value 1, right? We've already done the swap here. And txt value 2 text property, and text property is highlighted. So this is going to be value 2, right? So we're going to assign that value 2. So this does the swap, and then we're going to assign it to our text property. So we're reassigning the text properties, right? So let's go ahead and see what this does. Well, actually, we've got to call the method, right? If we run it now, we're going to be executing this method if we click that button. So let's comment that out. And now we need to call the swap method. We need to call this swap method. And let's do this. Let's create variables, string value 1, and txt, right? Our text box, first text box, and now string and value 2 txt, and this is going to be our second text box, right? So these are our two text boxes. The text property, remember, that holds the whatever text is in those box is in the box. This is what that property holds, and a property is like a variable. You think of a property as a variable for now, that's fine. And we're going to it's a string, so we're going to assign it to these string variables, right? And I'm getting the red squiggly. No overload for method swap takes 0 arguments. Remember, the arguments is what we pass to the method, and there's no version of this method that doesn't take any arguments. Right. The only it has one parameter signature, and this parameter signature takes 2 strings. So we have to pass it 2 strings. We got to pass it 2 strings. So, and I've named my variables the same as the parameters. That's just a coincidence, right? It just it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These are variables in this scope, and these are parameters in this scope. So they're 2 totally different variables. 2 totally different variables, right? So these are the variables that I'm declaring here. These are variables in this scope of this method that I'm passing to this method, and I'm passing it to these parameters, which just happen to have the exact same name, right? So I just want to point that out, so it can be a little confusing. So variable names, and parameter names, same, yeah, right? Same names, but different, right? They're different things. These are variables, and these are the parameters for that method. Hope I made that clear. Okay, so we're calling this swap method. We're passing it to these 2 string variables. We're passing it these 2 values. These are my variables, and I'm passing it to this. And actually, let's do this. Let's name this, because I can see that's going to be confusing. Input value. Let's go with that. Input value. So there we go. So and we also have to, you can, by the way, if you see this little thing here, see how these did not get updated, right? And I forgot to do that here. But if I click here, you see that red thing again, a little red box. Hover over it, and you'll see this little box pop up. And if you click on the arrow, it'll give you the option to rename. You want to rename all the instances of value 2 to input value 2. Right, so if I click on that, it's going to rename all of these. Right, so you see all the instances of value 2, value 2 were updated to input value 2 because I made that change. Now with this one I didn't, so I've got to copy this, Control C, and I'm just going to paste over these. Control V paste. So Control C copy, Control V paste. Right. So there we go. So these have been updated. So just to make that a little clearer, there, input value. This is the input value, right? And these are the values that I'm passing to these parameters. So this is going to be whatever is typed in these text boxes. Whatever's in those text boxes, this text property gets that value, whatever it is, right? And it's a string, so it's going to be only put strings in text boxes. Text boxes would only hold a string. So we know it's a string, and we're going to assign it to this string variable, right? Same thing here with the other text box, and we're passing these two values to this method, right? And they go into the input parameter boxes, and then this does the little switcheroo, right? Puts this into this box temporarily, and then this assigns what's in this box to that box, and then we take what's in the temporary box, put it in this box, right? And then we assign it to reassign the text properties, right? So let's look at that. Let's go and run the program. Hopefully you're following along with your own program. Okay, so just type in anything here. I'll just type in a number here, so 100 here and 55 here. So hopefully, cross your fingers, if everything works, the 55 will go over here and the 100 will go over here. And there we go. So they did a little swapperoo. So let's just put in a name this time. Alright, so I got Dave over here and Bob over here. So when I click the button, it should do a little swapperoo, a little switcheroo. So there you go, a little switcheroo. So now it's swapping them back and forth. So there you go. So that's the idea. Okay, so let's look at this in the debugger. So I'm going to click, I'm going to click over here and breaking point, or actually just F9, set up a breaking point. Right, so let's go ahead and run this. So I've got my breaking point here, and well, actually I might want to put in a value first. So we'll do that same, Dave here, Bob here, and click on the button, and you see this text box holds that text property, holds that value Dave, that string Dave, right? And it gets assigned. We just step over, and that gets assigned to this variable, right? So now this variable, this box, holds that value Dave, right? And same thing here, this holds the value Bob. So now we're passing it these two strings. We're calling this method swap, and we're within the parentheses, we're passing it these two values, right? The first one is Dave, and the second one Bob, right? So now I want to do step into. We're going to do step into like we did before. We just want to step into this method. Want to step into. A lot of times you just want to execute. If you're debugging, you just want to execute the method and move on. But sometimes you want to step into the method, right? You just step into this. This time we want to step into the method. So you see I'd step into the method. We're on this line now. So now we can do step over, or either one actually. So we see this input value 1, which we passed it here. Value 1. This is our variable. Which holds the string Dave. We passed it here. Note the positions match. This is the first position, right? This is the second position, right? They match up, right? So in value 1, here we had the value Dave, the string Dave, which we pass here. It went into this input parameter box, if you will. Right? And in this input parameter box goes the string Bob, right? So, so we're using these parameters in the method. This holds the string Dave, input value 1. we want to assign that to this temporary box. Right now it holds a null value. This line has not been executed. Let's just go and execute that line by clicking step over. So now this temp box has the string Dave, right? So we've assigned that temporarily. Let's go and execute this line. So now we put the string Bob, whatever's in this box, assign it to this box, value 1. So now value 1, it was Dave here. We passed it Dave, but now we've reassigned it this string, right? The string Bob. So we've reassigned this box. And now we'll do the same thing for value 2. Now we take the temp box, right, which holds the value passed to this parameter, and we assign it to value 2. So that's how we do the little swaparoo. And then we just assign these variables to, actually these parameters, input parameter boxes. We assign them to the text properties on those the text boxes, right? So hopefully all of that is clear. If not, please type this in yourself and step through it, watch the values, watch them change. I can't stress that enough. You have to type it. You have to get your hands dirty, as Bob Tabor says. You have to type this in and see what it does yourself. So if that's not clear, please do this yourself. Just pause if you have to. But type this in yourself. Step through it in the debugger and see what it does. Okay, so that's it for part 2. We're going to continue with part 3. We still got a good bit to talk about with methods. And methods is very important to get a good grasp of methods, so we're spending a lot of time on this. So that's the end of part 2. I'll see you in part 3.